morning to our NCTV audience. This is Rick Haggerty, Kickin It For Peace, Culture, and Education, airing each Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. And I'm here with Yana Tallon Hicks. Good morning, Yana.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm a little sleepy, but I'm good.
Well, as I mentioned to you, I think this is the most excited I've been to have a guest on my show. Your article is amazing. And for folks who don't know, Yana is a pleasure-positive sex educator and writer. And she is at yanatallonhicks.com. And she's at Facebook, Yana Tallon Hicks. And Twitter at _Valley VS, the V Spot. And her Valley Advocate column is entitled The V Spot. And it can be found for free on the back page of the Valley Advocate or on valleyadvocate.com. So you've got a lot going on.
I do have a lot going on.
You're a very busy person.
I am.
And, I wanted to start with just finding out, first of all, welcome, and I'm so happy you're here. Sure. So how did you get your start in the sex education business? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. This is a big question because I can remember things going very far back into my life that would indicate that I would end up here. I joke around that I used to actually have this club in grade school, I think in kindergarten, called Kissing Girls. We would chase boys around the playground and then pin them down and kiss their cheeks.
Very nice.
Yeah, we had to work on our consent issues. So I find myself here teaching teenagers about consent now. So it all comes full circle.
Well, it's funny. I was looking at a Facebook post last night. Maybe it was yours. I'm not sure, but it was about the kids in Holland.
Oh, no,
Are in Europe. I think it was in Amsterdam, in Holland possibly, where the kids are taught about sex education from kindergarten.
Oh, yeah. They have really, really good sex education outside of the U.S.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure why we can't get on board.
Exactly. And, the point of it was that the complaint, sexual, unwanted sexual complaints are at the lowest level anywhere in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone's educated.
Yeah, we think that if we shield people from the information they need, that they won't be making mistakes. And in reality, they need the information so they don't make mistakes. It's kind of a simple math that we don't totally get here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's taught so much later. I think I teach middle school. And, a lot of it comes up in kind of science anatomy in the 7th grade.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions in the column recently from parents of tweens and teens, wondering how they should speak to their kids about different sexual topics or just curiosities that are coming up for them. Google is a huge sex educator in our culture, which I think is horrible.
Yeah, not good.
You Google anything and you're going to find information that's not going to be useful or appropriate for a tween. So I think parents getting ahead of that is really important. And I just think we don't really exist in a culture where that is encouraged and parents are not really given that sort of information as much. So that's been interesting.
It's unfortunate. And folks, if you just tuned in, we're speaking with Yana Tallon Hicks, pleasure positive sex educator and writer. She's at yanatallonhicks.com. This is Rick Haggerty, Kicking It For Peace, Culture, and Education. Our phone number here, 413-585-1033, 413-585-1033, if you have a question or a comment for Yana. And we're listening to Mammal Dap. Here's their CD. Reese Williams and Company, who is a friend and neighbor of mine, and they've played down at Hinge, and they're around. So some great music in the background for you. So could you define pleasure-positive sex education and writing? How about we start there?
I can, yes. Okay. So pleasure-positive sex education and writing, at least to me, it's closely tied to sex positivity, which has kind of been blowing up since the 2000s hit. But the idea is that there's all aspects of our sex education can lead to greater sexual pleasure. And I think a lot of the times people think that certain things in our sex and relationship education are disconnected from how we're actually feeling. So, for example, like in Cosmo magazine, we're told to like pull out these ice cube tricks or these Altoid tricks or all of these little tricks to do better things in bed. And in reality, we need to be looking at bigger picture things like consent and communication, more concrete things like learning where your pleasurable spots are, learning how to protect yourself against STIs and STDs. All of these things, I believe, are connected to greater sexual pleasure. And I think that people often forget that that is the case.
Yeah.
So personally, my mission is to incorporate all of these aspects of our pleasure-based education and educate people about them in an intentional way.
Sure.
Like I said, I think a lot of people learn about how to make themselves and each other feel good by accident. You're kind of fumbling around in the dark, trying to push some buttons. Maybe you did it once, but you can't repeat it. So how can we learn about these things in an intentional way to spread this a little further?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And what's the Altoid trick? No. I'm sorry. Let's go on to, well, and on that website or that back to that Facebook post.
Yeah.
I mean, the theme for the kids, the appropriate touch and expression and all that, it was based on love.
Yeah.
And in so many realms, it seems, like Tina Turner said, what's love got to do with it? I mean, sex, what I mean? But on the other side, it's relationships. So there better be that cohesion. I'm trying to think of what my horoscope said this week. It says something about ballast, that there better be a bond which brings ballast.
Right,
and it's not just kind of flying in the wind, so to speak.
I think that we definitely live in a binary culture that wants love to be one thing and sex to be another thing and sort of that. And I think there's a huge spectrum. I mean, spectrums are a reoccurring theme in my sex education writing for sure. And where are you on this kind of sliding bar instead of making it so black and white? Also, our culture's education, we focus on a lot of things. In a lot of my workshops, I do a brainstorm about what is it that we learned in our sex education classes, and then what is it we have discovered about sex and pleasure in our actual lives. And those lists are very different. The sex education list tends to be a lot about fear, disease. It's definitely just heterosexual. A lot of it's about birth control. It's very scary. And then what you learned in your real life is fun and pleasurable and interesting and kind of it's not perfect. It's imperfect. It's not what you see in the movies. And I think that there's a huge gap there and that there's a way for us to incorporate both sides of that reality. And I don't think education does that enough.
Yeah, for sure. I wish we had an hour to talk about
I know,
this.
sorry. I could go forever. So.
I know, I'm glad it's recorded because I'm going to be listening to learn from this. Well, no, thank you. That's so important. Again, welcome so much to our NCTV audience. And this is Kickin' It For Peace, Culture, and Education, airing every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. on Valley Free Radio, 103.3 FM Northampton, and on valleyfreeradio.org. And to our listeners, we're at 413-585-1033, 413-585-1033. If you have a question or comment, and yes, you can do it anonymously if you so choose, which one of my listeners asked earlier.
We won't air your dirty laundry unless you want us to.
yeah, exactly. So I thought we'd move over to the your column, and I cut out a couple of the columns that I enjoyed, and the two most recent, the 21st and 28th of May. Let's start with, I like the title, Tying to Get Kinky.
Thank you. Making up puns is my favorite part of my job.
That was fantastic. Well, I mentioned it at a house party last night.
Yeah.
And they just burst into laughter
that's awesome.
When I said it. So you're not a fan of 50 Shades of Grey,
no,
but I
God,
can tell.
No. It would be professional suicide if I were a fan of 50 Shades of Grey, I think.
I hated it. I didn't like the guy. I didn't like the woman. I didn't like the author.
I know.
It was, kinky and kind of interesting, but beyond that, it was nothing.
I mean, I think the sex educator community has really done a very good job at covering this in the media in their own way. I know that there is a sex toy shop, I believe in Philly, that is doing a 50 Shades book trade-in. So if you bring in 50 Shades of Grey, they'll give you what they're calling an actual kink book, which I think is a pretty cool response. But yeah, so I mean, like many of my professional colleagues in the world have already said, it was just pretty non-consensual, and I think the kink community has been struggling really hard to gain more mainstream acceptance for being different than abuse. And I think that 50 Shades just really shot that effort in the foot, and it was bad. I mean, also the acting was just bad. The lip biting, my God, the lip biting. Please stop biting your lip. It was like really awful. It wasn't even sexy.
Yeah. Well, I read the book or the CD, and I got a lip biting, but I didn't watch the movie.
Oh God, don't watch it.
It was
don't watch the movie.
Full of lip biting. So you liked this kind of rollout of kinkiness in the relationship that from your question from Thai Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really well introduced, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think
so
especially
that's the way to introduce something new.
Yeah.
Compassionately, would you say? And yeah.
This reader in particular is a college student, and I think a lot of the time college students, they go to college and all of a sudden they can have like whoever they're interested in their room. And that's like a very exciting thing to do, especially when you're finally moving out of your house, your parents aren't around, you can kind of like experiment. And I think that's also definitely a time where people need more education and intervention about these things. And it's not hard to tie your girlfriend up with a necktie or something, but that's not the safest way to do it. So I think it's really nice that this writer wrote in and got good information and is kind of going about this in the right way. So I was really excited.
Sure. And could we give just a brief synopsis of what happened?
Yeah. You want me to do it, or you're going to do it?
Well, you're more familiar with the guy.
So this was a college student, and he was writing in because he wanted to tie his girlfriend up. He said that they had kind of experimented with some light sort of like BDSM bondage sort of stuff, but they wanted to go a little further, and they weren't sure how to go about that. So I just gave them advice on, safe kind of gear to get, to stay away from things like neckties and metal handcuffs and sort of gag gifts that you can get at the mall, and go more towards safer things that don't cut off your circulation, like how do you get out of a knot if someone's in if your mom pops by for a visit, you got to get her out really quick. Yeah, right. There's things to think about. It's not just like Christian Grey, who is from 50 Shades of Grey, if you don't know, and goes in swinging floggers and things like that without worrying about his partner's safety. So it was a lot about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we go to the next article, I actually had a question come in.
Oh, cool.
All right. So here's the question. Let's see. Here's my question. When it has happened that during intercourse, the one partner, male, has not come to finish completion, what should be done to allay any worry that the other partner may have about not being able to fully, quote unquote, satisfy her partner, and further to assure that the experience was fun and satisfying for the said male?
So I have, this comes up a lot because I think we're very orgasm focused as a sexual culture. We're obsessed with achieving the pot of gold at the end of the sexual rainbow. And I like to remind people that it's the trip down the sexual rainbow that is also really important. And if you're enjoying yourself throughout your experience and you're doing something right, and that the orgasm is just kind of, give it a little less power over the situation and make sure you're having a good time the whole way through. And, a lot of women don't orgasm during sex. So. Yeah. And we're still having a pretty good time, So it's important to focus on other things.
Yeah. And well. And I think about that as somebody like being introduced to their, young person, being introduced to the world of sexual experience,
right.
Or someone at the other end, maybe a premenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal, at both ends, trying to find their
there are other aspects to
pleasure.
The journey that are important for sure.
Yeah. So not so much.
Otherwise, we'd just like be having sex for like 2 seconds, get that orgasm, and be like, all right, cool, bye.
Yeah. So that right. So our listener is very happy.
Oh, good.
And says, he's happy to enjoy the journey.
Oh, good. Enjoy your journey, listener.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And thank you, listener, for your question. If anybody else has a question and they would like to call in, we are at 413-585-1033, 413-585-1033. And if you just tuned in, this is Rick Haggerty, Kickin' It For Peace, Culture, and Education, airing each Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. on Valley Free Radio 103.3 FM Northampton and online at valleyfreeradio.org. And I'm here with Yana Tallon Hicks, and she is the pleasure positive sex educator and writer, and she's at yanatallonhicks.com. So the next article, something borrowed, something lubed. And this was a question about, we'll go back to the early stage, a woman losing her virginity on her wedding night and wondering about the best lube, given the need for allergies, etc. Mm-hmm. And that is Maid of Honor.
Yes. So this woman's maid of honor did her due diligence and emailed me this question. Her friend is losing her virginity on her wedding night and was concerned about what kind of lubes to get, which I thought was an awesome question. I really wish that I knew about lube when I lost my virginity, personally. So this was a really great article for me to write, just because I don't get a lot of questions from people that are not already having sex. And I think it's really, really important to get information before you start doing those things. So I was really thrilled to write this, and it got me thinking a lot about kind of like what I wish I had before I started having sex as a teenager. And I had a lot of good conversations with my friends about it. Some of them are on video, actually, on my website. And so I gave her a lot of advice about what kind of lube to get. There's a lot of great lubes out there. KY is not the only option, nor is it a very good option. It tends to have a lot of ingredients like glycerin, parabens that are not so great for your dirty bits. So my personal favorite is Liquid Sassy Booty formula. They sell it at Oh My Northampton. And the Liquid C is another one I really like. Good Clean Love is an organic version of lube that's out there that's really cushioning and kind of nice. So I gave her a lot of good advice, and the more lube you use, the better, in my opinion. So.
At any age.
At any age, yeah. People
any stage or
people
age or, yeah.
see lube as like a weird fault, like they need to be producing lube on their own, or it's like an indicator that they're not having a good time. And people self-lubricate for all different reasons, or don't for all different reasons.
Like saliva, basically.
Yeah, trying to keep it PG here.
Well, yes. Through arousal.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So it's like maybe you didn't drink enough water that day.
Okay.
So using lube, it's like it just makes everything better, and I think people see it as like a weird weakness to use lube. And I don't like that. I want to smash that idea. Lube is wonderful. So breaking through the lube barrier. The more lube, the merrier. Yeah. And I had a question as you were talking, but good. Okay, so that was another great article. All right, and let's talk about your new website. Yes. YanaTallonHicks.com. I love talking about my new website. Tell us about it. So it's YanaTallonHicks.com, which is my name without the hyphen. Okay. And I've been on a little break from school. I'm in graduate school right now studying marriage and family therapy. And I'm on a little break, so I decided to keep it productive and make myself a website. People have been asking me what my website is forever, and I just haven't had one place. So now there's one place to go where you can read all my columns. You can read about the workshops that I teach. You can hire me to teach a workshop for you. I post little YouTube videos up there. The recording of this radio show will be up there. I got some great headshots taken by a friend. It's good. It's like all the stuff that I'm doing in one spot finally. Yeah, great. You got so much going on. It's great to get it centralized. Mm-hmm. Now, is it completed, or are you still working on it? It is completed. I just posted a highlights reel video of me teaching a workshop about pleasurable spots at Hampshire College. It took me a really long time because I'm not that good at that stuff, so I'm pretty proud of myself. You should go watch it. Yeah. You can see me in action. You can see me teach. It's done. Finally. Fantastic. Yes. Well, congratulations. Thank you. All right. So, it is 9:31, approaching 9:32.
We're going to take a short break, and feel free to give us a call during the break. We're at 413-585-1033, 413-585-1033, and we're here with Yana Tallon Hicks, and she is the pleasure-positive sex educator and writer, and she's at yanatallonhicks.com. And we will be right back. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. And welcome back. It's Rick Haggerty, Kickin' It For Peace, Culture and Education with Yana Tallon Hicks. And you're listening to Mammal Dap. And this is Ghost Honey. What a beautiful tune. You get a chance to see Mammal Dap. They had a great show at Hinge, as I mentioned. Their CD release a few weeks ago. And, they're a local band, and they're awesome. So get out to see Reese Williams, who I know, bass, synth bass, Colin Jalbert, Zach Cross, and Killian Carlson. Mammal Dap. What a great group. So we're back.
Hi.
Got to see your dog.
I did get to see
Brewster?
Yeah, Brewster.
So cute. What kind of dog is he?
He is a Chihuahua Dachshund. If anyone
Nice.
I know is listening to this, which you better be, they're probably laughing because I'm obsessed with my dog. I have his portrait tattooed on my leg.
Nice.
My Instagram is just like all Brewster. But my lovely boyfriend just texted me a picture of Brewster listening to the show.
Oh, isn't Brewster a good dog?
My two number one fans.
That's so great. I know, my dog passed last April.
Oh, no.
Took me a long time to,
I know.
when you shut your phone off, whatever that's called, your wallpaper.
Oh, yeah.
Those are my kids and not
Yeah.
my dogs. But it took me a long time to take Brandy off my
God, I know.
there.
I can't even think about the time that Brewster will no longer be with me.
I think good-looking kids.
Oh, yeah. Those kids are lovely.
That's Phil. That's Patrick.
Aww.
And so now I got the boys on there. So let's go on. And so we want to kick it off with just letting folks know that we're speaking with Yana Tallon Hicks. We're at 413-585-1033. And again, thank you to our NCTV audience and our Valley for Radio listeners. And who do you consider your mentors in life? Let's start with that.
I love this question. When people interview me, they just want, the dirty dirt. And I've been thinking a lot about my mentors lately as I am trying to sort of blossom in my own career here. Feeling a lot of gratitude towards them. So I would have to say right off the bat that Carol Jessel is definitely one of them. And I'm sorry, Carol, I've never said your last name out loud. So I hope that's how she pronounces it. But she owns Oh My.
Carol. Yeah. I met Carol.
Yeah. So her and her daughter Beth are really so supportive of me. I actually bought my very first sex toy ever from Carol and Oh My when they were behind Acadia Herbals there in their original location.
Acadia Herbals. Let's see, where is that?
I can't.
But anyway, now they're next to Pinocchio.
Yeah, so now they're next to Pinocchio's on Main Street. They're very easy to find.
Yes.
But they've hosted workshops for me. They always let me take floor models with me to go teach workshops. They're always promoting me. They carry my zines that I made on a rainy day once. They're promoting my business cards are there and everything.
What did you make?
I made some zines. They're like mini homemade magazines. One is about the G-spot and one is about the prostate. And you can get them at Oh My. They're for like $2. It's like a little sex educational gesture.
So the literature there on the right when you walk in?
Yeah. It's like more towards the lube. Go towards the lube.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they are just so supportive. And Carol has some really amazing stories that I can't repeat here, but it's really, really nice to see someone that was doing this when it was really, really hard to do this.
Yeah.
So I hope to carry that on for them and sort of make them proud, and they're great.
Yeah, and they're such a great shop. It's so friendly, and it just feels so comfortable being in there. And, friendly people,
I think a lot of the time, too, like my generation and younger generations take it for granted that we have like a safe space to go buy sex toys, ask sex questions, get our lube in a place that is owned by women that isn't seedy. It's not like in a back alley somewhere. No one's like creeping on you, and the products are quality. And Right. Yeah.
It's not that. It's the local.
Yeah. So
face.
they're really great. And then also more recently, I don't know if you know Brooke Norton. She does some workshops for parents that want to talk to their kids about sex. She offers them, I believe it's for free at the Cup and Top in Florence periodically. And she's now a clinical sex therapy intern at Northampton Sex Therapy Associates. So she's pretty much doing what I want to do. So it's been really nice to be able to meet with her and have her perspective. She's obviously a little further along in her education than I am.
Where are they located?
Really Northampton Sex Therapy Associates is in Florence as well. And I believe they have another location. I'm blanking on where that is. It might be in Florence, it might be in Northampton. But they're around, and they are who I want to be professionally when I professionally grow up. So it's really nice again to see women in this industry doing these things and kind of paving the way for me to sort of skip up their yellow brick road. So it's really great to have them around. Thank you guys if you're listening.
Well, I have to say, it's so great that you're so humble. I mean, I read the article, and sometimes it's a little intimidating, some of the topics. And I mean, it can be, very enlightening, but deep at the same time. And it goes into areas that, you're not always, like, used to talking about. That's what's so great about it.
Yeah.
But then I meet you, and you're, like, so incredibly humble, and you're still kind of learning and growing in your field.
Yeah,
you don't like that know it all.
No,
but
I don't.
It's so refreshing.
Thank you. I don't think I've ever been called humble before, but I'll take it.
Well, I mean it though.
No, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Sure. You're very welcome. Let's go on. You're writing a book?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I am.
Tell me, start to finish what it's about.
Yeah.
No, it's just you're just getting it right.
I would say more accurately that I have finally decided to write a book. I have been tossing some topics around with some friends, and everyone keeps telling me to write a book. They're like, why don't you just take all your columns and put them in a book, and why can't you just be Dan Savage? And I was like, oh yeah, that's never occurred to me. I'll just be Dan Savage. So I'm gonna try now to be him and put something in a book. There's a couple of topics floating around. I think the one that I'm landing on is actually possibly not what people would expect me to write about. It is related to sex and relationships, but maybe not in the same way that you're used to me writing. So I think that's really exciting. That's really exciting for me. So I'll be holed up in my studio, despairing and staring at the wall for the next 2 years if you need me.
All right. Well, so I've got a question.
Yes.
All right. So my question is, when dating, you're a lot of women are looking for, and I'm heterosexual male, obviously. A lot of women are looking for a relationship, so you're kind of like feeling it out. You're like, well, where's sex gonna be a part of it, and where's the relationship gonna be a part of it, and the discussion about it. So you're moving forward, and certainly there's got to be some relating, obviously, before you're having sex. But on the other hand, having sex doesn't necessarily mean it's a relationship.
Right.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about do you know where I'm going with it?
I think that I do. I think that in this day and age, especially, relationships and sex are becoming more flexible to be tailor fit to the people that are having the relationships or having the sex. I think if it's a chicken or egg situation, I usually tell people that if you can't talk about sex with the person that you want to have sex with, then you're not ready to have sex with them. Talking is a very big part of sex, and I don't think people realize that enough or utilize that enough. And then, I'm sorry, can you clarify your question one more time? Like, where is the line?
Probably not.
Like, you're sleeping with each other, and then when is it a relationship sort of thing?
Well, yeah, I think, having the conversation about sex, but also having the conversation about the relationship.
Yeah, the what are we conversation?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any real easy way to do that. I think you just need to sit down and talk about it. And I think people are getting more comfortable with the idea that you can tailor fit your relationship to your needs. So maybe you're sleeping with each other, but maybe you're also sleeping with other people, or maybe you're sleeping with each other most of the time and you're dating each other most of the time, but every now and then you see someone else. A lot of that is just about communicating about what your boundaries are, what you're comfortable with, and making sure that everyone's informed and consenting to what's happening. Sure. I think that's really the new relationship rule is everyone informed? Do they know what they're signing up for? Are they consenting to it? Instead of falling into this, like, we're monogamous or we're not, we're together or we're not. Again, with the black and white, get off the black and white, get off the binary. We're all on a spectrum now. So where do you want to be on it?
Yes.
So talk about it.
Yeah. And thank you.
Yeah.
And that reminds me also of the polyamorous couple who, we're both friends with and have been on the show. And,
hi, guys.
And that was, hey, what's happening, guys? And that was a whole other realm of, openness and disclosure and discussion. It seemed like the openness in the discussion was the most prominent feature that I gathered.
I'll give you a hint. This topic may or may not be in my book. And also, speaking of mentors, I just watched a TED Talk by Esther Perel. She is I'm not sure if she calls herself a sex therapist, but she talks about sex and relationships. She did a really good TED Talk on monogamy and infidelity, and what does infidelity mean, and what does monogamy mean today. And it was really awesome. She really inspires me. I really want to be her, but she has this beautiful accent. She's gorgeous. She has these really powerful eyebrows. I'm like, I got to sculpt my eyebrows. I got to work on my accent, and then I can be her. She's really great.
You don't want to do that. What's her name?
Her name is Esther Perel.
Esther Perel.
Her last name, I believe, is spelled Perel. She's fantastic.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And again, we're speaking with Yana Tallon Hicks. It's Rick Haggerty, Kickin It For Peace, Culture, and Education, airing each Sunday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. on Valley Free Radio, 103.3 FM Northampton. We're at 413-585-1033. A lot of shy people out there this morning.
Yeah, well, it's early. It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. Or they're all at church.
They're all at church.
Said, right?
Yeah, they're all at church.
So let's talk about we've got a little extra time because...
Sure.
Occupy the Airwaves is actually recorded this morning. You've got sex education workshops.
I do.
See, I love this. Normalization and humor.
Yes.
Are the key.
Yes.
And that's key, I think, in the dialogue that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Talk about sex.
Yeah.
Talk about the relationship, and it's normalizing it. So tell me about your workshops.
As far as the normalization and humor goes, I think that those two things are probably my best tools. I use them a lot in the column. Sometimes I'll pick on people a little bit or make jokes. But the reality is that I really take this very seriously, and me picking on people and making jokes is trying to get it to be more incorporated into their life more organically. I think that oftentimes we're trying to mirror like porn or what we saw in a movie, and we think that sex is this like very serious thing, and like, if the lube bottle slips out of your hand and flies across the room, you're not supposed to laugh, and then you're devastated and like the sex is over. And in reality, it's part of our life. Sex is a part of our life. Our life is imperfect. I really can't stress enough that sex is not kind of in this neat little package. If you're doing it right, you're not doing it in a neat way, I don't think. So, yeah.
So the knowing more about sex toys, kinks, orgasms, vaginas, penises, butts, and our bodies and our partners' bodies, and what makes us and them squirm, the better and healthier sex and relationships we'll all have.
Yes.
So I think
that is my belief.
Yeah. So the yeses are much more valuable. Talk about the yeses and the nos that you touched on here.
So I think that along the lines of making sex fun and normal is really what I angle for when I'm teaching workshops. I think that there is a lot of quality information and a lot of kind of like overwhelming information. And if we're having a good time while we're learning, then we're doing it right. You're more likely to remember it if you had fun. And I think a lot of the time, especially with teens and youth, I just taught a consent workshop at Amherst High School. We built each other ice cream sundaes, and we used that as a big metaphor for consent, and they really had a great time, and they remember it. I've run into, I think, 4 of them now on the sidewalk, and they were like, "Oh, you taught us that ice cream consent thing, and it was so great," and it taught us how to use it. Youth love ice cream also, which is always helpful. But I think a lot of the time, especially when we're talking to teens, we're telling them what to say no to. We're telling them what to say no to. We're really harping on the no's, and no's, and no's, which is super important. But we forget that we also need to be teaching them what to say yes to. What do they want? How do they say yes? When is it okay to say yes? Especially for young women being taught that they're always supposed to say no. So it's pretty interesting to learn both sides of that coin, and I think we forget to flip that coin over.
Sure.
So that's what I mean by that.
Well, and it's interesting too. I think certainly about safety.
Mm-hmm.
Given we're high school kids, and then going into college, where drugs and alcohol are more prevalent.
I mean, the stories about rape on college campuses right now are everywhere. They're everywhere. So it's
Absolutely.
like, when are we? How are we learning about consent? We don't really learn about it. Sex education certainly doesn't talk about consent, as far as I can remember.
Absolutely.
So when do we do that? I think youth can handle that information more than we give them credit.
Yeah.
And I think on college campuses, definitely all freshmen should be required to take a consent workshop. So if you need one, YanaTallonHicks.com.
You know where to go. Absolutely. Well, I think a lot about too, like what I learned growing up, from my family, which was a kind of Catholic, kind of, very tolerant, supporting, and loving, but had that kind of like conservative, like background around.
Just say no.
Sex.
Right. Sex is not a drug. It is a part of our life.
Yeah.
It does not have to be a just say no situation.
Right. And then my ex, on the other hand, her mom was kind of handing out, birth control, at a ripe young age, and then I've run into other parents where they kind of raise their eyebrows if they hear about how I'm raising, my kids, and they think, well, everybody's kind of influenced a lot by their own family of origin, how they were raised.
Yeah.
But what's healthiest is not necessarily, doesn't come from our families from the 50s or 60s or whatever.
Yeah, and I think my stance too is that I don't ever want to tell a parent how to raise their kid.
Why not? No.
I'm certainly not qualified to do that. And like I said, I think that this consent, like for example, the consent workshop at the high school, we never really spoke about sex. It was not explicit. We were talking about ice cream. And obviously they can apply that to our lives, but the thing that we were taking away and that we were trying to learn was how do we ask each other questions? How do we accept it when someone tells us no? How do we decide to say no or yes? And how do we work that into every part of our life? Whether or not they're holding hands or kissing or whatever they're doing, communicating about your needs and your boundaries is something that we don't really learn. And how do we learn that? And how do we apply it? It doesn't need to be explicit all the time. Sure. I can clean up my mouth when I need to. I know it's hard to believe, but...
So sexual pleasure can absolutely change the world. Tell me about that.
Yes, this is one of my biggest beliefs. This comes from actually your first question about how I got started here is that my first romantic and sexual experience in high school was not good. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship with a young man who obviously had a harder life than I did if he was doing that to girls. And the way that I came out of that, I mean, it was obviously really difficult. I also didn't really know what was going on. I was kind of young. I wasn't really sure, like, what are my boundaries? How do I say no? How do I say yes? And that has kind of, when I came out of that, I really came out with my little baby feminist guns blazing. I was taking my friends to like Tapestry Health and getting us free condoms. I was really encouraging them to say no to things and stick up for themselves and all this stuff. And it kind of unfolded into this educational mission of mine. And now here I am. I was just talking to my best friend, actually, this one night on her porch. When we were 17, I was giving her some advice about her boyfriend. And she was like, you should do this for a living. And I was like, I should do this for a living. So I really believe that learning how to feel good is really going to help us sort of prevent that sort of bad side of sex and relationships, and that we can change. We can change a lot of things by learning how to feel good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, it's a happier world if people are feeling good, feeling
and
satisfied,
communicating and getting what they need. And it seems easy, but it's so hard.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's such a Buddhist concept, the dialogue and having everything up on the table and really talking, discussing, everything.
Yes.
It's such so important. So all the workshops operate with the understanding that sexual desire, sexuality, and gender identity exist on a spectrum.
Yes.
It's back to the spectrum we talked about.
I harp a lot on the spectrum.
And it's a comfortable place for all. And sexual selves, pleasure, communication, consent, and the body, and using natural language. Neutral language. Mm-hmm. So neutral language.
So.
In terms of gender. And,
so like I said, I believe in
Right.
I believe in spectrums. So it is hard. Language. We're very restricted by the language that we use to make everybody feel comfortable on spectrums, because our language is so binary. So when I teach my workshops, I talk about this right up front. We talk about spectrums and binaries. And then I try to use language that is reflective of body parts and doesn't attach those body parts to gender necessarily. So we can talk about toys and pleasure and communication in a way where people feel like they're being addressed.
Sure.
That's the goal.
Sure. Well, I wish we had more time.
I
know. Well, will you come back?
Yes, I'll come back.
Oh, fantastic.
I love being in front of a microphone.
Fantastic. Well, we've been speaking with Yana Tallon Hicks, the pleasure positive sex educator and writer, and she is now at Yana Tallon Hicks with no hyphen.com, YanaTallonHicks.com. Well, everybody knows your. Is it on the article?
It is. It's right. It's on my byline on the V spot.
Just get rid of the hyphen.
Valley Advocate.
And the .com.
You can do a little
go.
Googling. You'll find me. I'm easy to find.
Again, thank you to our NCTV audience. We're always thrilled to have you with us. That's right, wave. And to our Valley Free Radio listeners, and for our question that came in. And any closing thoughts?
Oh, God. Any closing thoughts?
Anything?
Buy some lube. Ask for consent. Read my column. Those are my thoughts.
Go to Oh My.
Have the sex that you want to be having. Go after that. That's what I think I'll say.
Yeah, like don't settle.
Yeah.
I guess is what I hear. That's one of the things I practice. Don't settle for what you're.
Yeah.
Anything short of what
you
you're
deserve it all.
Yeah, so you deserve it all. Yana, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And this is Rick Haggerty, Kicking It for Peace, Culture, and Education. It is 9:56 and change, and I will be right back. And thanks so much for listening. And you're listening to Mammal Tap. Thank you again, Yana.
Thank you.
Alrighty. I hope you've enjoyed my show. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Rick Haggerty, Kicking It for Peace, Culture, and Education, airing each Sunday from 8 to 10 a.m. Thank you to my guest, Yana Tallon Hicks, pleasure-positive sex educator and writer at YanaTallonHicks.com. And please join me next Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. right here for Kicking It for Peace, Culture, and Education. My guest, percussionist Tony Vaca. Thanks for listening, folks. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter at valleyfreeradio.org. And coming up next at 10 a.m., Occupy the Airwaves. I'm Rick Haggerty. Have a great week. And enjoy the rain. Take care.